Taking a look back at the 2025 season, and is Todd Bowles less safe now that John Harbaugh is available? That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, the number one sports podcast network. Would like to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. I am your host, James Yarcho, writer over at Bucs Report. He is Evan Klosky at eKlosky over on 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app. And I'm here with you every Monday through Friday along with the everydayers. For that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. Lots to get to in this episode, like John Harbaugh is available. So is that going to spell trouble for Todd Bowles? And which coaches does Evan think are on the hot seat if Todd Bowles is retained? That is all coming up in a little bit. But Evan, I'm curious to hear your thoughts when you look back at the 2025 season. It ended with a win, but not really, because the Falcons also won. So here we are. It's the first time that we've done this show. I think this is the first episode you and I have ever done after week 18 where the Bucs were not headed to the postseason.
I've never covered the Bucs when they weren't in the playoffs.
See, there it is. Somehow this is David Shealy's fault. I'm not sure how, but that's what we're going to say.
He was rooting. You all should hit up David Shealy. He was rooting for the Falcons. He's a Falcons fan, and you should rub it in his face. So he wasn't looking out for your best interest out there. He was looking out for his because he hates the Saints so much. Yeah, well, and it probably made his son cry, who is a Buccaneers fan, because of a bet that he lost. Yeah.
So now
young Zeke.
He's hurting the Bucs fans. He's hurting his own son. I mean, come on, David. Let's get it together. But I am curious to hear your thoughts when you look back at the 2025 season, because this was a team with Super Bowl aspirations and hype, and then they missed the playoffs. You were in the locker room Monday for the end of season interviews. What are kind of your biggest takeaways from the season, and honestly, kind of where this team is going right now?
One big takeaway for me is I genuinely do not believe this team has a culture issue. I think that there were execution issues that maybe sprouted up because of too many walkthroughs or just in general the coaching not being up to snuff. But I didn't get a sense of this divide in the locker room, and there have been teams in the past, not that I've covered, but you can go back to the days of Keyshawn Johnson and Warren Sapp in those locker rooms. Like, you can have also a divide and still be a very good team as well. But I didn't sense any animosity, and nobody was really signaling it as well. They just hit a lot of roadblocks. I think injuries played a part. I think I really do think that they kind of shut it down in that bye week, and it was really tough to rev the engines back up. I thought they played a great game against the Patriots. I thought the Bills game was the start of an absolute nightmare for the defense, and Todd could not figure it out quickly enough. And just the offense was not good enough. This team was going to be a Super Bowl contender, like we said, maybe before the year. Like, the offense had to maintain its status as a top 5 offense, and it was far from it. Grizz did some really nice things early on. I think he was exposed later on in the season. They tried the continuity route. Didn't work. I also think that Grizz has a lot of promise moving forward, but the Buccaneers are not a team that should be trying to have people in that position learn on the job. Like, they have a lot of talent. If they want to be taken seriously to go to a Super Bowl, like they gotta probably have someone who's been there and done that a little bit more. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But it's just a team that kind of fell flat on its face. And yeah, like, Baker didn't play well. And we can talk about the myriad of excuses we want to give him, but in the end, the results were not good enough, and Baker has to be better. He needs a better support system around him in terms of coaching. He also needs a better backup quarterback behind him, but he also needs to flat out play better. And we saw an MVP level quarterback for the first half of the year, and we saw a bottom 10 quarterback, and that might be being generous, in the back half of the year based on what the stats were, at least. So certainly you're going to ride with Baker, but one of the big question marks entering the offseason is, do you extend him? Do you not extend him? And, we'll have plenty of time to debate that once we figure out what the heck is going on with this head coach.
Yeah, and we'll get more into the head coach conversation coming up in a little bit. But, obviously the offense had plenty of problems. The defense was not immune to that either. So you take a look at this entire season as a landscape, and yeah, you and I were talking about championship aspirations heading into the season, but it wasn't just us. It wasn't just Bucs media. It wasn't just the people that focus solely on this team. It was national recognition, number one in the power rankings, top 3 in, the Vegas odds for, winning a Super Bowl at one point this season. So I think that's where things sit so poorly with Bucs fans is, that's why they want Todd Bowles gone. That's why they're so irritated and frustrated, because it wasn't supposed to be this way. And you deal with all the injuries, but the best coaches, the best coordinators, they figure it out. San Francisco was competing for a number 1 seed in the conference, and they had even more injuries than the Bucs did. So you can only use that as a reason for so long before you have to take a look at, the people responsible for trying to get this team ready with the pieces they have.
Yeah, and I think if there's one thing entering or leaving this season that maybe we all took for granted entering the season, though, I certainly talked about that a little bit in the preseason, was the unknowns on the defensive side of the football.
Mm-hmm.
The front 7 is not good enough, right? I love the Hassan Reddick signing, but there was no guarantee that he was going to return to the Hassan Reddick we saw a couple of years ago or a few years ago. They believed in Servassier Dennis. So did I, but it didn't work out. And he did not look like the same guy we saw on the field in Detroit a couple of years ago when he was flying all around, flying everywhere. And, Jason Light tried to sell us on Chris Braswell in the offseason. Like, what a dud that was, and a waste of a second-round pick, it feels like at this point. There was no pass rush. You got Booger McFarland every game watching the Bucs saying this is literally the worst pass rush in the NFL. And it's time for Jason to stop farting around and fix it. Like, you and I, James, we've had these convos for years now.
Yeah, for like
if you're listening to this, you're a diehard Bucs fan. You've been yelling at your TV now for multiple years about this, and it hasn't been fixed. They've tried a developmental route a couple of times. It's failed miserably, whether with, KJ Britt. Servassier was better than Britt, but still, I think Servassier, and I've said it for a while now, is better suited as a third-string linebacker, where if somebody goes down, you can plug him in and feel pretty good about it. But there's a lot to fix on that defensive front and the linebacker position, and that is something where if they want to even entertain making a Super Bowl run, they got to prove to us that they can pressure the QB and have some dog out there who can do it alone. And I love Yaya, but as I've always said, I think Yaya is better as a Robin versus a Batman. And I think he still is looking for his Batman.
Yeah, I said the exact same thing on the squad show. He's going to be an amazing Robin, like the Scottie Pippen of edge rushers. But they got to find Michael Jordan. If that's going to be in the draft, I don't know. When you're picking at 15, those elite guys are usually gone. Is it a trade for Crosby? Is it a free agent signing? They're going to have to find it somewhere. The question is, what head coach would that edge rusher be playing for? Because Todd Bowles may not be as safe as we thought now that a Super Bowl winning coach is out of Baltimore. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey guys, the draft picks positions are set and so many teams are looking for their franchise quarterback. You ever wish to become a pro quarterback getting drafted first overall by the Buccaneers? Well, now you can. There's a mobile game just for you called Ultimate QB Football Legend. In this game, you step into the cleats of a number one draft pick quarterback, and it's your job to lead your team to greatness to help turn a failing franchise into a dynasty. This is the number one quarterback career mode game on the mobile app stores, and it introduces the most realistic environment and full career control. Sign contracts, train and upgrade yourself, build chemistry, and evolve your teammates. Give input to your GM on roster moves, play the actual games in 2D, and rise through the ranks to become a pro football legend. You'll deal with the ups and downs of a quarterback career, from rookie nerves to playoff drama, and every choice shapes your journey. Ultimate QB is totally free to play, has no ads, and works 100% offline. Perfect for when you want to sneak in a quick game or two on the go. Just head over to ultimate-qb.com. That's ultimate-qb.com, or search for Ultimate QB in your app store. And we've got something special for you guys. Use promo code LOCKEDON, all caps, in the game's store to get a free boost at the start of your career. Ultimate QB Football Legend QB1, it's your legacy. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. You want someone in-network nearby with availability, but you also want a doctor who really listens, makes you feel comfortable, explains things clearly, and helps you walk out feeling confident about your next step. Your diamond in the rough doctor exists, and finding them is easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can choose someone you truly connect with. Using ZocDoc makes scheduling easier. Search for in-network doctors and book right on the app. You get real appointment times listed, including same-day visits, so there's no more back-and-forth phone calls or waiting weeks to be seen. So stop putting off your doctor's appointments and get the care you need. Go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every day, and thank you for making Locked On the number one sports podcast network. If you're a true diehard Buccaneers fan, which I know you are because you're listening to this show, the Everydayer All Access tier is built for you. You're going to get one-on-one text access with me, all access episodes, an exclusive newsletter, and a 15% discount to the Locked On merch store. Head to lockedonbucs.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club and unlock all access. You can also find the link in the show notes. So, Evan, you and I were texting earlier on Tuesday discussing what was going to be said on this show. And I was like, I need your thoughts on the Todd Bowles situation. He survived Black Monday. Things started to sound like he was going to keep his job. You got Bruce Arians out there as a one-man PR crew for Todd doing the world tour, talking about how, Todd's not going anywhere and he deserves to keep this job and yada, yada. There's been a lot of speculation that the Glazers don't want to get rid of Todd Bowles, but the Glazers also love making a splash whenever they can. And now that John Harbaugh is available after being let go from the Ravens, does that change the Todd Bowles dynamic at all?
I don't think it does, because at least before that even happened, I wasn't going to come on here and say, oh yeah, Bowles is looking safe. I still think it's outside looking in for Bowles, and by the time that you're maybe listening to this episode, it's very possible he can already be gone. But there's a lot of things that I just don't know how the Glazers going to be able to stick with him. Like, his approval rating is so low, and he's going to be a lame duck coach. It's just a really bad situation for a team that you feel like has tons of talent. Why would you put them in this limbo of make it or break it? And you would have to, like, Todd would have to prove that he can bring in the coaching staff that's worth it. So, look, I would be surprised if the Glazer family is not reaching out to Harbaugh's representatives to see where things stand. Does that mean that the Bucs would be in pole position to get Harbaugh? I don't know about that. Personally, the New York Giants job is probably the juiciest one out there currently.
Outside of Baltimore, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean.
For Harbaugh, yeah
exactly.
I just wanted to clarify before the YouTube comments went off.
Fair enough. But, here's the other thing. Jason Light spent time with Harbaugh in Philly. Harbaugh's daughter played at USF last year. I'm sure he knows the lay of the land around here. He's older. Maybe he wants to move to, do the East Coast thing where he comes down to Florida. He saw Tom Brady in the back end of his career win a Super Bowl down here. So, I can make it, and certainly the talent on the roster, there's a lot here, and he would essentially have his pick of the litter in terms of a coaching staff outside of maybe a couple of people we'll get to when we cross that bridge with questions. But, yeah, I think they have a shot at Harbaugh. Am I making that they're going to fire Bowles and go all in on Harbaugh? You got to do your due diligence here as well, right? I mean, Miami evidently is very interested in Harbaugh. And if Mike McDaniel gets fired, well, all of a sudden the Bucs should be very interested in Mike McDaniel. So, things move pretty quickly. And when one domino falls, other dominoes fall. And, we'll see what happens. But it's very intriguing. That's what I'll say. It's very intriguing. And I don't think it's a nothing burger for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and you had Adam Schefter reporting that within 45 minutes of Harbaugh being fired, his agent had received calls from 7 different teams. Well, there's only 7 openings, and so one of those openings was created by Harbaugh being fired. That means that his agent is being contacted by teams that still have head coaches in place. And when you take a look at the openings, there aren't a ton that makes sense for Harbaugh. Like you mentioned, 63 years old. He's not looking for a full rebuild, I wouldn't think. No. He's going to look for those teams where it's going to be within the next couple of years that they can truly contend for a Super Bowl. And I don't think there's many jobs out there that are open or could be open that would fit that kind of criteria. I do agree New York is probably one where it probably won't be in 2026, but 2027, 2028, you could be talking about a legit Super Bowl contender there. Tampa is obviously one right out of the gate. I think I'm a little higher on the Atlanta roster than I think you are. We were talking pre-show, and you said they don't have a quarterback, and I said, well, they kind of have Flacco. I think
Atlanta's also. I think Atlanta's a good job. Don't get me wrong, but. Especially mostly because of the conference they play in, right? The division they play in.
Yeah.
Having said that, like when you're a new head coach and you have your pick of the litter, don't you want to go to a team that has a solidified quarterback situation? And you're going to the Falcons, where I like Michael Penix, but he's been injured a lot in his career and is coming off another significant injury. So there's no guarantee. What?
Said you still
they restructured his contract. He's gone. He's gone. They're not guaranteed.
I thought they restructured because he wanted to stay. Wasn't that
he wants to stay? And I think he did. I think he says that in the terms of in front of a microphone. But the contract and the way that is spells that he's getting cut. And allow Kirk to find a new opportunity where he can play. But Falcons are up there. It's just I'm a little bit wary of the QB situation. They don't have a first-round pick this year. Their salary cap is not 1000% in great shape. It's not one of the best cap situations, we'll say that. So I don't think it's a super desirable job, but it would be in, like, if the Bucs came open, I would probably have it Giants, Bucs, Falcons in that order, in projecting what I think Harbaugh would want.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, unless Miami is kind of that mystery.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we can, it's tough to
we
live
can
in.
speculate.
I can speculate on Tampa Bay and go through those hoops. I can't on other teams. I really can't speak on. So at some point, I got to cut off the hypotheticals.
Yeah, I mean, we could speculate on all the teams that still have their head coaches as to which ones.
What if the Chargers fire Jim for John?
Aha! Now we're talking. Yeah. How about Bowles just hires John Harbaugh to be the special teams coordinator? Can we get that fixed? Speaking of special teams coordinators, let's say that Todd Bowles does keep his job. That's going to come with staff changes, and Evan is going to let us know which ones he is keeping an eye on. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. The wild card round is here, and FanDuel is officially in playoff mode. Every game day during the NFL playoffs, FanDuel is giving customers even more ways to get in on the action, because right now, every NFL playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost pack waiting for them inside the app. Each game day, you'll see a pack loaded with multiple profit boosts you can apply to bets you like most. Open your profit boost pack first thing on game day and see what boosts you want to apply. You make your picks, then apply your profit boost to go after even bigger payouts while the playoffs get rolling. The Seattle Seahawks are the favorites to win the Super Bowl at plus 390, followed by the Los Angeles Rams at plus 430, the Denver Broncos at plus 650, and then the defending champion Philadelphia Eagles at plus 800. Visit FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL, and grab your profit boost pack every NFL playoff game day. Wrapping things up here on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, and I talked yesterday about some coaches and coordinators that I thought would be on the hot seat if Bowles stuck around. Obviously, if the Glazers choose to keep him, that's going to come with some conditions, some stipulations, most likely changes to his coaching staff. So, Evan, what coaches do you think are in the biggest danger of losing their jobs?
Special teams coordinator. Can argue that's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
That will happen. Can almost guarantee that one. A deplorable year for special teams. Have not covered a worse special teams in my career.
It was so bad.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think the writing's on the wall for Grizz. I think he's gone. I think Todd needs to make some major changes with his defensive staff. Look, he's been around these guys forever with the Foots and the Rapones and Edwards and he brought in Charlie Strong. Like, I don't know how. I'm sure Todd, you can't just wipe away all of them in one off season, but there's got to be major changes there with the staff. You need to bring in some people that have a different thought process than your own. Like, you can't be bringing in the same staff year over year and imagine you're going to come up with different ideas. Like, it's just not – that's not how this goes. So honestly, if your name's not Kevin Carberry and Brian Picucci, I think you're all on notice. I'm sorry, this was a bad year. Like, y'all didn't do good enough. It's got to be completely reevaluated. And that's the tough part with Bowles. Like, are you really going to keep Bowles around to build a completely new staff when he's also on the hot seat again? Like, that's why I just keep running back to, like, I don't know how the Glazer family keeps him around and acts like we can roll into next year without, like, major changes here. So that's why, like, any which way I talk about it, it's tough to even live in that hypothetical. But, yeah, I mean, you need to bring in a defensive mind that is different than your own. That is absolutely necessary.
Would it surprise you at all if Todd brought in a dedicated defensive coordinator?
Would it surprise me? Yes, it would. Because I don't think he wants to give up play calling. And
that's a deal breaker for me.
Well, I mean, that's a thing. It might be a deal breaker for him, and he might say deuce. I mean, like, it's got to work out for both parties. Now, whether I think it's a right or a wrong move doesn't matter. I don't think he wants to be a walk-around coach. But, you saw the improvements in Atlanta with what Raheem was able to do this year as a walk-around coach. And maybe they can sell him on that. But I have a tough time believing Bowles is going to be amenable to the fact of, like, hey, you're not going to call your defense. Sit this one out, buddy. Listen to, like, what's the point of having him? Like, I get he has good culture, and I respect the heck out of Todd Bowles. But, like, hey, you're going to be a walk-around head coach. And, oh, by the way, we hired a game manager for you to make decisions. Like, at what point are you, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So that's why I just don't even get the hypothetical of it all. It's just like either he's your defensive coordinator or like he's gone. That's like his whole part here. That's what he's supposed to do. Like that's the part of the genius of the hire of why you wanted him in the first place, because he's such a great defensive mind. And he is. He really is. I do think a lot of it has to do with personnel. But it's still not good enough. And we've had 4 years. We know, like, there hasn't been a significant change. It's stale. It is super stale.
Yeah, and we just finished talking about John Harbaugh, and he was there for 18 years, and they felt like they needed a change. They felt like they needed a new voice, and obviously Todd hasn't been around that long. It's
crazy. I mean, Harbaugh, 180 wins, 113 losses, right? Yeah. Different from Bowles, who's 35-33. And arguably Harbaugh, I just think Baltimore is sick and tired of the heartbreaks at the end of these games. But, I mean, how close were they to Super Bowl appearances in the past? Mark Andrews drops a ball. You have Tyler Loop, who cost him a playoff appearance. You have the game where you hosted against the Chiefs. That was a whole mess. So –
you had a 99-yard fumble return for a touchdown by Trey Hendrickson.
The Cincinnati. Yeah, so, there are a lot of these, like, what-if moments in Harbaugh's recent career, but his teams have been widely successful. It's like he knows how to win, and the best part is he would be able to bring in his own coordinators, offensive and defensive.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of an appealing part for Bucs fans right now, but – I was kind of along the same lines as you in terms of which coaches I feel were on the hot seat. I feel like McGahee and Grizz are pretty much a slam dunk. But beyond that, I was looking at guys like Larry Foote and Hinson and
I would imagine. Yeah, I mean, look, Kefense Hinson was a Grizz hire. So if Grizz goes, my guess is Hinson goes.
Yeah, I think we should guarantee the safety of Tom Moore. Protect that man at all costs.
Tom Moore will be here. That's fine.
That is a requirement. Any head coach that comes in.
Tom Moore is not going anywhere.
Yeah, thank goodness, because we all love Tom Moore. But yeah,
I don't count him in this discussion. He really is more of like a consultant. He's there to bounce ideas and but he's not digging into day-to-day plans.
Well, and the other thing that I want to bring up, because you mentioned him and I brought him up for a different reason, but it's Kevin Carberry. And I understand how great the offensive line was last year, but is he really, like, for sure safe considering how bad the offensive, like, isn't it a little bit to get these guys a little better prepared?
I believe, and I have to go back to the stats, so don't quote me on it, but I believe the last time I looked at it, the Bucs ranked 9th in pressure rate allowed with all the turnover on the offensive line. Like, Mike Jordan and Dan Feeney played a significant amount of snaps. They started the season on practice squads.
Right.
They were not backups. They were practice squad players. You had Graham Barton move over to left tackle. You had Ben Bredesen move over to center. Luke Gedeke missed, 6 games? You had, Tristan Wirfs, who was injured the entire season. Like, from OTAs to training camp, he came back. He tore the oblique right off the bone. He played through a turf toe. Somehow he was still a Pro Bowler because he's just a freak of nature. But this was they had every reason to just absolutely suck wind in the trenches, and they were I'm not saying they were great. I'm saying that and that's impressive. I'm telling you, I cannot speak highly enough of Carberry and Bakucci and what they've done. If you can keep them, you do keep them. And I would tell the incoming coach, you're going to like these two. I guarantee it.
Fair enough. All right, Evan, what do we have going on over at 10 Tampa Bay, 10tampabay.com, and the 10 Tampa Bay Plus app?
The Ultimate Florida Sports Show is back. We will continue doing that now that the holiday schedules aren't so weird. So you can find that on the 10 Tampa Bay News app. You can also find the Blitz one more time. We got an end-of-year episode here, and we'll call quits. We got to say goodbye to everybody and sign off. So we got one more Blitz episode. You can also find that on our YouTube page as well as our 10 Tampa Bay News app. And then otherwise, you can find our sportscast 6 and 11 o'clock. The Tampa Bay Lightning, they could be a Stanley Cup champion this year. They are that good. I'm not saying they will be a champion. I think that if you're talking about contenders, the Lightning are on the short list of contenders. They're up there. So stick with us throughout the season on that there's his little tiny Vasi helmet. And before we know it, it will be the Stadium Series game at the beginning of February. We'll be at Port Charlotte for the beginning of spring training for the Rays. So, we got you all year. And even throughout the offseason with the Bucs, still talking with James. And, if there's a coaching search, we'll be all over it. So, and interact with me at eClaski WTSP on the Twitter.
Yep, you are going to want to stay tuned in. All right, please check out everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, at eClaski WTSP, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs in both of those places. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Become an all-access member, lockedonbucs.supercast.com, or click the link in the show notes. You want to support the show, but you don't want to be in the Everydayer Club. It's real simple. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. Want to thank you so much for joining us right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.